I remember reviewing translations in paper, actually marking, like when back in Brazil, 1994.
It took a lot of time, right? Now we're talking about one business quarter and things are different.
The industry is going to grow. There will be more people coming into the industry, but the way that people are working and the roles that they have are going to change.
Welcome, friends, to a new episode of Merging Minds, the podcast brought to you by BureauWorks, the AI-powered TMS. One more day. I am super excited to be here with three good friends of mine, three localization legends, three people that are having a great and long career in the industry, who I met recently in one of my last trips in Seattle when we attended an event, one of the community events in the localization industry in the city, in which we had a super cool discussion about the future of localization jobs, the status of the industry. And I was having a chat with Agustín, and he said, like, hey, we'd love to come and talk about something we're doing, which is we're writing a book, the three of us. So with all of you, Agustín, Alfredo, and Jorge are here with us. Hi, guys. How's everybody doing?
Hey, Javi.
Hey.
Nice to be here with you.
Thanks for coming. And we've had a bit of an incident because this week I was sick. My face was all swollen, so we had to reschedule our recording a couple of times. And I'm happy the guys are here today. Thanks so much. I'm going to start like in alphabetical order, calling each of you so you guys can introduce yourselves, say who you are, where you come from, and what you're doing. Okay. So first of all is Agustín. Hola.
Oh. Hola, Javi, and thank you for having us here. Well, I'm Agustín Dafieno. I'm originally from Peru, and I started in localization in Dublin, Ireland, back in 1998. So, long time, and that's where actually the three of us met. So since then, I've been having, I started in many roles. I actually started as a language specialist reviewing the translation quality of Windows 98.
Wow.
So that was my first project. And since then, I had several roles. I moved to being a localizer. I actually was one of the 4 people who translated Windows XP into Spanish. And then since then, I gravitated towards more technical roles since I have a background in computer science. And since then, had many different roles, in the industry, more like in the globalization and architecture, but always related to data. And that's where I am right now. I'm a data scientist working on, now, by passion, also on localization, but I'm more concentrated now on product analytics.
Nice.
So in Seattle these days, but yes, that's me.
From Peru in Seattle,
I'll pass it on then to
Alfredo,
Javi.
Please.
Yeah.
Who's Alfredo?
Javi, thank you so much for inviting us. It's kind of fun to be here. So I'm Alfredo De Almeida, originally from Brazil. I started. I mean, my background is also computer science, but I started working in the localization industry back in 1994 in Rio, where I'm originally from. Working for a supplier, a small supplier, localization supplier, and I, as an engineer, PM, in a vendor, you do everything.
Yeah.
I was hired to be the guy responsible for the network, and in the end, I reviewed texts. I worked as an engineer, worked as a PM. And one year later, I went to Dublin for training. We were going to start localizing a Microsoft product, and you will see a cat passing by.
I love it. I have dogs around, so you're fine, eh? Like as long as they see each other, it's good.
And I got lucky while I was there because they were looking for a Brazilian to work on the translation of Windows NT 351. That's 1995, and they asked me, do you know anybody who would like to work in this? I said, I may know someone. And then I got the job and I started working there, and I've been in Microsoft for 30 years. I actually recently retired.
Yeah.
So after 30 years, and I've done everything that you could think in terms of localization, from PM, lead, manager, localization architect, as engineer, translated. I done everything.
Everything.
Now I'm here in Seattle with like Agustín and George. And what I'm going to be after retiring, I'm going to be dedicated to teaching at UW, localization PM course together with George, and enjoy a little bit my kids. They're here in the back.
All right. Alfredo, Agustin, first of all, it's like my friend Miguel Sepúlveda sends hello to both of you. He told me yesterday. So he still remembers those Ireland days, eh? Miguel, if you're watching,
Yeah.
hi. Eh?
Oh, let's go.
And last but not least, Georgie in a
Okay.
minute. Like who's Jorge Santos?
So, similar to Alfredo and Agustin, I came from a technical background, and I saw. So this just shows how long we've known each other. I saw an ad in a paper for someone that needed technical skills and language skills to work in Ireland for Microsoft, and it was an interesting process because I had phone interviews and I was faxing answers and things like that. And then at some point in the process, I was like, "Is this kind of just an elaborate prank from my friends?" Because I haven't met anyone in person. But when I got the plane tickets in paper, I was like, "Okay, so I get this is real." So I went to Ireland on a Sunday, started working on a Monday, and my first weekend there, I went to a club to watch soccer with them, or football as we call it, with Alfredo.
Football, my
Yes,
friend.
with Alfredo
We're
and
Europeans.
yes, and Agustin. So I started over there in Ireland. Started off as a localizer, moved more into engineering. Then our group got transferred to over here to Seattle, where Microsoft says its headquarters. By the way, Microsoft is turning 50 this year, so kind of a milestone as well. And Alfredo had already moved here, so I moved here in 2003. Alfredo had moved in 2000, and if I'm not mistaken, Agustin moved here in 2006. So we kind of reunited back here. We kind of continue our careers and our friendship, and we've been kind of doing stuff for work and outside of work together. So teaching at the UW, as Alfredo was mentioning, and we'll talk more about this later.
Yeah.
But we also talk about where the industry is going, what is
Yes.
the future, what is likely going to stay the same, what is likely to change. So from those ideas, that's where we thought, oh, let's just kind of put it in paper and kind of create a book for that.
Thanks, guys. It's incredible to have three leaders, three minds, three Microsoft-oriented people today on this podcast. I'm extremely happy and extremely thankful. And you guys carry a very large experience. You guys know it all. You're also very aware of what's going on today. So I hope we can have a nice conversation and share all of your knowledge with those friends watching, right? So I'll be throwing some questions there because there's a lot to touch upon, and we have some 30 minutes. So I want to ask you a few questions that I would like shoot them at, for example, Agustin, and then, hey, Alfredo, whatever, because I would like to hear as many opinions as possible, right? So since we are 4 veterans here, it's been my 10th year now. I'm still a kid, right? But compared to your journey. But can you think of how the industry was back in the mid-90s when you guys started? And let me ask Agustin, how was it? What's your opinion on how the industry was back then and how it is now? What were the things that you remember most?
Yeah, so big, very different, right? Back then, we were still localizing using spreadsheets. We kind of start seeing the beginning of digital glossaries. We started to say the first tools that we were using back then for terminology management, for even localization, for translation directly. The how to move from just text files to seeing the binaries, even the user interface. So different, very different. Like the internet just started. So the communication protocols, of course, started to bring more possibilities about sharing. But we were situation in that there weren't many multilingual vendors. So the LSPs were just several. You sometimes had to pick one even per language.
Wow.
And different vendors for translation, different vendors for quality assurance. So back then it was like that. It was many of the roles that are now all in the LSPs were inside the company. In fact, we had terminologies, we have language specialists, we had translators, and you name it. Even the funny name of that role that called an ELK, that it was a localization and external localization coordinator, because there was so much to do in vendor management. So very, very different days. Particularly because of we started kind of following the technology trends too, in terms of not many things were possible back then. Now different.
Now it's completely different, right? So sorry.
I can give you even an older perspective. I remember reviewing translations in paper, actually marking, like when back in Brazil, 1994, marking, okay, I wouldn't have translated this way, I would have done it that way, and write it down in paper to give to the PM to talk with the translator about the changes. I remember sending for one project literally 50 flop disks with all the translations, like with the build. Actually, for some projects, we actually had to build the product. The vendor, like we did everything. So we would have to do the translations and build a product and send it flipped and flop disks to back to the client. I remember reviewing packaging of the products. And that's already.
Alfredo, I personally miss faxes. I miss faxes. I still live those days.
I sent quite a lot of faxes to Japan, in Europe, when I was a PM here in Redmond already. Like that's already 2000. So there's a lot of very interesting things that if you think today, like it's been 30 years later, no phones, no cell phones.
Yeah.
We had a project that we would build the final CD. There's not even the DVD. Like the product localized, we would actually write, like build and burn the golden version in a DVD, and we had to send someone to Japan because they were so concerned about something could go wrong in sending the final product for manufacturing, that actually we paid a ticket for someone to bring it with the person to Japan so that we could really send it to manufacturing so that they can actually burn the
Those were the days. Those were the days. So,
that's a lot of stories there.
So much has passed, and it's like you guys cannot forget that I'm 42. I'm a millennial, and I've lived those days as a kid, but I've lived those days, and I love what you guys are sharing here, because lots of the people, many friends listening, are in their 30s and 20s, and they never saw a fax machine, and I love it. I love this. I remember the first time I saw that and seeing something coming through that machine. Somebody has written this in the other side of the world, and it's just here. Oh my God, that's incredible, right? So
that's right. Yeah.
That's true, right?
That's what George was saying about sending faxes and communications. I also thought, like George, that it was a scam when they wanted to hire me, and they actually asked me, send a fax to this address. And I noticed it was true because the fax headline said Microsoft Ireland. That's how I knew, this is real.
Alfredo, you just told us that you've retired from Microsoft after a career of 30 years there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Microsoft is a company known for having one of the most sophisticated globalization infrastructures in the world. You've done a career in a company, which is not common these days. How has that part of just working in a single company shaped your approach to language technology and leadership?
I've been very fortunate to work for a company like Microsoft, for such a long period of time. One of the reasons why I never left, even though there were a lot of offers throughout my career to go to other places, is that because first of all, it's fantastic company to work for. Second, like if you're thinking in terms of localization per se, probably for many years was like the most advanced company or one of the most advanced companies in the field. So in terms of like access to the new technology, money, which is very important. If you have money, you can do things. If you don't have
Yes.
money, you have to be very careful about how you spend it.
Yes.
So and I worked with many teams inside Microsoft. So in a way, if you think of Microsoft as a company of 100 and something thousand people, I worked in several teams, and I've done so many different jobs, from like release manager. And like when I came to Seattle, I started as an engineer translator back in Ireland, and then I became a PM, and then I traveled to Seattle. I worked as a release manager for a project, humongous project. I became a lead again. I became an architect later, and a PM, and a PM manager. So I've done everything.
Yeah.
From testing to localizing to engineering to PMing. I've done pretty much everything in my last few years, like a couple of years, working more with directly with AI. Luckily, together with Agustín as well. It was my first opportunity to work very closely with in his team. It was a great experience.
Nice.
So
And
it's
that's
nice.
like, what one thing that I noticed just by the four of us here is like, just like this is the very common case of people that have a similar mentality to globalization, to expanding to worldwide. Like both of us, we're four immigrants who left their homes years ago in order to look for new opportunities, and that has shaped our the way we approach work, leadership, and communications with people, and the way we are, right? I thought of like, I think the thing that matches us and brings us all together in this industry is that those particular things. I think as well, localization teams often work in the intersection of language, technology, business, and it makes me think of another question that I'd like to ask Georgie. So, taking these three aspects into account, what do you think is the key to living in such multidisciplinary space and with such multidisciplinary kind of people?
So, Javi, I see that you spend a lot of time with your Brazilian friends, because my friends in Portugal would call me Jorge, while my
George,
Brazilian friends would
Georgie,
call me Jorge. My Latin American friends would call me Jorge. So I go by all of them, and I appreciate when people, because I get a little bit of an insight into their background. I just wanted to go back a little bit to the comments that Agustin and Alfredo mentioned, because
sí,
we still do a lot of localization by Excel, and so that's something that was very surprising to me, was that when I started localization, because to be honest, when I started working localization, I didn't know what localization was. To me, the only translation existed, and then as I started getting into the industry, I thought, oh, there's going to be a bunch of technical problems that we're going to fix. We're gonna get IDs, we're gonna get context, and then it's just gonna be a pure translation, because the translator will just get an environment where they will be able to see what they are localizing in runtime, and then they will just need to do the translation. So we're gonna fix that. It's not gonna happen. That's not how the industry evolved, and I think I lacked awareness when I was seeking that. And something that I also thought wrongly when I started working in the industry was that there was kind of a finite amount of work to be done on the localization side. And what we see is that there's like an explosion of content, and that we are localizing more and more. So things like what we are doing right now, like podcast and video, like there's been an explosion of content in that. Going back to your specific question, I think that's one of the amazing things about working in localization, is that not only do you work with kind of different cultures, but you also touch a lot of parts of the organization. And when I'm teaching the classes at UW with Alfredo and Agustin, I always tell the teams, you have to be very careful, because you have a lot of power. Like a lot of times people are sharing information with you that is very proprietary about, upcoming release capabilities, features, and you have to keep that information. And for instance, when I was at Microsoft, there were some people that were working at the sub that they were trying to be sneaky and kind of trying to find information about upcoming releases through the localization team, because we have to be aware of those because we are working in
The
localizability.
whistleblowers, the localization
Yeah,
whistleblowers.
and so
I love it. I
people
love
are
it.
like, "Oh, tell me
I
about the
love
next
it. I
version."
love it.
I'm like,
Like
if you
we
are in
need to
sales,
be.
you want to sell what you have
Yes.
right now. You don't want to think about what's coming up, because you can jeopardize
Yes.
the
I love
current
it. I
sales.
love
So
it.
I think that that's one of the great things, and also one of the great opportunities. Something that we also emphasize to our students as well is that sometimes when you go into a team that is kind of just in that forming stage, because you have to create a lot of structure for localization, you have to involve the stakeholders, you have to create schedules and all of that. You can actually bring that structure back to the team, and they are very appreciative, because a lot of times, it's a very fast moving environment, and people are kind of just looking a few weeks ahead of what's happening. And because you have to create those plans, you can kind of bring that structure into the project and really add a lot of value. And that's also kind of like one of the opportunities for people that start working localization, is to kind of move laterally into program management, product management, release management. So yeah, I
And
do love
I,
working
I
in
love
localization.
and I love that you just put it out there, the fast-paced environment in which we are in now. And now, these last 3 years, everything has gone crazy with LLMs coming in us into what we do, scaring people up, like telling everybody that's going to lose their jobs, and that's not true. Like it's a tool. It's a tool that's helping us. Like I as a communicator, as a content writer, as a sales guy, whatever you want to call it, I can work more with AI, right? That has changed completely the panorama right now. I know Agustin is really into that nowadays, right? So how has that disrupted your work at Microsoft recently?
Yeah, so of course, when we started, with the launch of LLMs, and for the first time seeing LLMs that were really productive, and because before they were just attempts, right? So it started opening up the possibilities for many things, and we started seeing that and exploring that. I think that many of these things were theoretically possible, but back then we had to, our workflows and everything we were doing were obviously designed with that constraint in mind, knowing that there are things that we want to do, but they are not possible. And I think that's a key thing, is moving from the concept of saying, okay, it doesn't mean that we need to follow the same process right now. It means that we need to think about what is possible now, wasn't possible before, and that we can now, achieve with this methodology. So it has obviously, in my case, changed a lot, because I was in charge precisely for my area of understanding how is it that we can leverage AI for the whole international process, right?
Yeah.
So in many ways, it was that. It's actually realizing, oh yeah, the problems, the needs, are going to remain the same. We're gonna have the same needs. What changes now is what is possible.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that was the big, fact. But certainly, it's a question of saying, let's not just try to, you see it every day for sure. And with our friends, just we've been talking about too, in the sense of that curiosity, that ability to adapt, because every 3 months there is something new happening, and it's amazing. It's amazing how this evolves, and the pace of it is
Yeah.
just
It's
could be
crazy.
overwhelming to many.
It's
So
crazy. Yeah. Yeah.
if we
Yeah.
want to really reskill and make the leap into the workforce, and I think that's important to understand. It's like adaptability, particularly to change, and that exploration, that curiosity that we've been talking about, is super important.
Yeah.
Remaining open to that, and understanding that, yes, we went the horse carried, all these carriages, and we moved to automobiles. It took generations to make that leap. It took a lot of time, right? Now we're talking about one business quarter, and things are different.
Yes.
And that catching up with that is basically, before we would learn a process, and it would take like that for many years, 10 or so, even for localization. Once we went into the translation management with translation memories, and then recycling, and then machine learning, the machine translation, we've been in those cycles, every 10 years or so. Now we can be talking about every 3 months a new thing.
Yeah.
And that's kind of that's
The
kind of
moment
the
where we
thing.
are now. Yeah, yeah, the moment where we are now. Yeah, yeah. And in this fast-paced, changing environment in work, in life, because it's also life. Life has gone faster in the last few years. Like I have that feeling as well. I don't know if it's because I'm turning 40 and I'm in the middle of a midlife crisis, but I don't think so. But in this environment, you guys got together after like putting all this experience that you guys have, all these things that you've lived, and you decided to write a book, if I'm not mistaken, right? uh, Alfredo, can you tell me what is the name of the book, what's it going to be about, and when is it coming out? Just give me the basics of those things, please.
The answer is no, I can't. No, we in a way it's starting. Agustin is the forcing factor. He is the one that said, "Oh, we have to write." We have like combined almost 100 years of experience working in this area, and there's so many funny things that happen in the last 10 years. Wouldn't it be nice if we can actually put it together and like create a kind of an arc of how the it's a combination of our personal stories with how the localization evolved in the last few years. So we are early in this stage. We're considering. Agustin started writing some of the text, and we are putting together. But I think that I know, guys. I don't want to put any dates or anything here because we are being recorded. But I think that we should be able to finish this by this year, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think Chris is right. And it's for us, it's a combination of fun. It's something that keep us, together, because every time we meet, we remember something, and it's funny. And it's particularly comparing, like we were discussing, you just with technology. Remember when we used to that? Like we're like grandpas now, sitting and remember that.
In those conversations, are there beers involved as well, guys? Like a couple
Oh
of
yeah,
beers.
for sure,
Remember
for
back in
sure.
1998?
Yeah, funny stories, like.
Yeah,
But
especially about our times in Dublin.
yeah. So, and it was a fun fact, like because we combine both work and life, and it's because of them that I started learning other languages. It's their fault, and that really opened up for me a great opportunity. So all these things, and combining with similar interests and passions, football being one of them, and many other things that we enjoy, music, getting together, with good friends. So yeah, so I think that it was kind of, I think it, for us, it's more like a leaving something behind as a legacy to the ones who come, or the one who is interested in knowing the whole evolution, because the evolution tells you to a story on how to continue that. It's
If
actually,
you need a
you know
prologue, I am happy to write a prologue about what's going on now, music, because I'm an old-fashioned musical guy as well. Like I do southern rock, blues only. Well, I watch 7 games a week. So if you guys need a prologue for the book, just give me there. I'll write it with all my love. Georgie, one question for you. What is like the biggest challenge that you guys are finding, or that you have right now while writing a book between three friends?
So I think to answer it in a very succinct way is Agustin's productivity, because he's just been kind of churning out articles. I encourage you to follow him on LinkedIn. He has a lot of really interesting articles. So to me, the biggest challenge is to keep up with his productivity. But kind of just to echo what they have been saying, I think what we want to do is to kind of provide a little bit more clarity into the industry, because when you are going through the changes, it's very hard to kind of understand where the industry is going and what's going to happen. And I think between the three of us with the experience, we can give a little bit of perspective. And I think the what we are thinking about is that the industry is going to grow. There will be more people coming into the industry, but the way that people are working and the roles that they have are going to change. So my personal opinion, for instance, is that we are going to have more people working directly in country, because sometimes in the localization industry, if you use language vendor, you kind of have a development team that is central to the client company, and then you have a multi-language vendor, and then they kind of give out the translations to people that are located in country but that are either employed by the vendor or have like a third company that is subcontracted by the vendor. And I think the client companies are going to have more people directly working for them in country, because they want to make sure that the materials that they are putting out, and it can be software features, it can be marketing materials, are the appropriate ones. And at the same time, I think the time to market is going to be reduced because of all the gains in productivity that are happening. So kind of thinking these things through, kind of providing a little bit of perspective and possibly guidance, so that we can also bring this back to the classes that we teach. Because if if you've been in the industry for some time, you kind of have a lot of tools in your arsenal that you can kind of adapt to wherever the industry is going, or the markets that are available. But if you are a person that is kind of trying to break into the industry, you have to be very judicious about where am I going to put my efforts, where I'm going to dedicate my career to. And you can still use skills that are considered to be artisanal, but you kind of just have to find the niche that you want to work on. If you want to kind of be a more generic type of person, you kind of want to see what is the direction that the industry is going. But you have to be able to adapt. 3 years ago, everybody was telling people, oh, just go and be a software developer. Salaries are super high. There's a growing need for software developers. And now I think that's one of the professions that has more impact with the LLMs, where people are saying, oh, I don't need to hire junior developers. I can just have, a software architect, and then they can do a lot of the coding with the help of LLM. So that would be, I think, our goal, to kind of give some perspective into the industry, so that we can help the people that are trying to understand where the industry is going, have a little bit of more.
I remember how you guys mentioned these things. Particularly that you're talking now, when we met in Seattle a few weeks ago about the future of localization jobs, and how they're changing, and how you gotta be prepared for that change, because it's here, right? I was like, I asked Georgie which was the biggest challenge he saw while you guys are writing the book. But I want to ask you, what do you think is the single biggest takeaway that you want for anyone that reads it when the book comes out? We don't want to disclose names, dates, or anything, but when I finish reading the book, what do you want me to learn?
Yeah, are you asking me or
No, Agustin. Agustin.
Okay.
I would like Agustin to reply.
Right. I think that it's and this been mentioned also by George and Alfredo. Is perspective. Is actually how is it that we will approach these technology advancements, and how is it that we approach that, particularly in the context of the language industry, and how the different parts move, and how what are these different implications. And I think that that whole perspective of going through the many changes there were many lessons learned there that we should not forget, because we are in this hype right now, still a little bit, particularly in the industry, and there are things that we should not forget. It's very easy to, what happens usually, histories, people tend to forget. And I think it's super important that we are reminded of very crucial and important things about what matters. And that it doesn't mean now that, when I hear people saying that, yeah, we're going to just use LLMs and that's it, it's like much easier said than done. It can look impressive. They think it's like, it's the temptation of something that is now possible will bring just the this oversimplification of things, and people just going around, oh yeah, that's it, we're just going to do this, because obviously there's the temptation of people who are just mainly engineering driven. It's like, it's a fantastic achievement, and then yes, of course it is, and it's a breakthrough, yes, but I think we need to be reminded that there's a lot more at stake,
Yes.
and it's doing it kind of responsibly and meaningfully. And that's perhaps the perspective that we are with by telling this story too. It's a question of just understand the many moving points, and let's make sure that we don't forget those that are critical.
I love how you mentioned this. Never forget the past. Never forget the past in a lot of things you do. Never forget the past. Never forget the tools you used. Never forget the ways you approach. And I'm talking from a more salesy perspective. I had these conversations with our common friend Renato Beninato lots of times, and I was thinking, I'm doing this through social media. I'm doing these other things, things that you couldn't do back in the day. And it's like, kid, never forget that the way you approach the sales is the same as you approach it in the Middle Ages, in 1995, and in 2050. You're only changing the channels. You're only changing those tools, right? And I know it's very. And I at that moment I forgot. Hey, I'm nobody. I'm just like doing it, doing the same thing in a different channel. So it's great that you put this out there, so we never forget that there's stuff that has been done and the stuff that has been successful, and things that you can always go back to for inspiration and for new ideas, right?
Right, and for us, it's a kind of merging all these different views together. You can tell when we have been the three of us in class, and this is super important for people to see. And thanks Alfredo for always promoting that. It's like we all have sometimes different views about an issue, and we actually in class often would just present our sometimes even contrasting or opposing views, and I think that's super important. That's also what we want to bring. It's like we have not always agreed on things, and I think that's super important, because the more perspective you can bring, the better it is. It makes everything richer.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
if I can interject here, I
Sure,
think that that's one
Georgie,
of the
tell us. Yeah, of course.
one of the really interesting things that we do when we are teaching our localization project management class at the University of Washington is that we sometimes disagree on the solutions, and a lot of times project management, it doesn't have one. Just like life, it doesn't have one single solution. It's like it's whatever works for you. And for instance, in terms of organization of localization teams at the client, at Amazon, all the teams are super decentralized. At Meta, they are super centralized. At Microsoft, they are centralized, kind of at division level. So there are many ways that you can do whatever project you are doing, and in this case, doing localization. And so I think that's where we kind of get the insights not only into a solution, but kind of the thinking behind the solution that you should think when we are talking between myself, Agustin, Alfredo. We get insight into like not only the best solution, but like how can we get to an even better solution because we are getting different perspectives.
Georgie, thanks for bringing that up. I really, really, really find that interesting. To me, it has impacted what Agustin has said about not forgetting the past. That's been really, really important. Guys, I don't want to take much more of your time, but since everybody likes to talk about predictions in 30 seconds, each of you, Could you please give me a prediction for the future of the localization industry based on your experience? And I know this is a tricky one and everyone is doing it, but I need you two guys to share your ideas too before we say bye. Agustin, first. You go first.
Okay, no pressure. uh, so yeah, keeps evolving. Okay, and we started really seriously thinking about it when someone in class says, "Well, what's the point of us just even studying project management if AI is going to take over?" And I think that that's made us kind of really think about, hold on, it's not like that. But did we have anything to offer that was concrete? No. So then we decided to get together and study the issue and see what kind of answers we could give. To me, and take it with a grain of salt. Um, I think that translation is becoming more like a value added for LSPs,
Okay.
in the sense of this is not where where your business model is going to be, and we can start seeing that already from the perspective of like that's not going to be the main revenue stream. I think that the LSPs have a really big opportunity to shape the next phase of it by diversifying into what is going to be critical for many companies in addressing the language industry. What I see is that now there's going to be the content is going to be directly generated and created for any language instantly, and even more personalized or adapted to whatever you want. And
Yeah.
it's gonna get there, but obviously there is a lot that need to happen in the background to have something that you bring to production that is going to be really really valuable, and is precisely that expertise
Yeah.
of knowing how. There's a lot that has to be fine-tuned.
Yeah.
There's a lot that has to be customized. There's a lot that has to be ready.
Data. I can think of data as well.
Quality,
Yeah.
quality management, and
Yeah.
and fine tuning models, and that
Yes.
experience of which model is better than the other for this particular context and language and content type. Those are things that are going to be crucial going forward for the industry.
Mhm.
Just to
Alfredo,
paint
what
it
is your
shortly.
what is your take in another 30 seconds?
30 seconds. Okay. I think
45.
I think the perspective from the like people working in the field, I think you will be using AI on a daily basis. I think if you are not using it today, you already you're already behind. It will help you with your productivity. It will help you achieve things that you were not able to do in the past. So the more you learn, I think that the better for you be positioned in the industry. On the industry itself, Agustin already mentioned a lot of things. I think it's uh, things are changing in a way that uh, I think there will be less translation and more creation in a language you want. If we might be able to actually to super personalize things that we couldn't do it in the past into the language that you want, into that the flavors of language that you otherwise you would like until now it has been very expensive to do. You will
Alfredo, that's
do
already there. We're doing this with our tech. Like
exactly.
we put out a feature that we presented in Logworld
Yeah,
last year, and it's about that. It's about sending the customized message through AI to the person that you want to talk to in Brazil the way he wants to listen to that. That's already there.
exactly. And then with a different flavor, you might be able to do it with a different flavor for the people in the northeast of Brazil versus the people
Yes.
in the south of Brazil. Things like this will be able in the future more and
Yeah.
more. Uh, and solve problems. Like, I think the key thing is to solve problems that we were not able to solve
Yeah.
before in industry.
Yeah.
And I could talk more and more, but I'll
But
stop.
now we need George's opinion in another 30 seconds, my friend. So take out your crystal ball and tell us what your predictions are for the next 50 years or the next years.
So I think the perspective that I want to bring is that like we have a very diverse industry, and like not everything that we are talking about is going to happen immediately. Because, for instance, if you're working at Microsoft, you have developer content and you have marketing content, and the way that you localize those is very different. So, although I do agree that we are going to use AI, or we are already using AI, for instance, neural machine translation. We are going to do it at different speeds, and I think our industry is going to continue to grow. We will just have people that are going to either be shifting roles or kind of creating new roles, and not everyone is going to go at the same speed. But if you are in our industry, you need to know where the industry is going, so that you can move to that place at the speed that your organization requires. Because if you stay stuck in your place, someone else is going to kind of go and move, and you're going to be left behind.
So a very millennial value, flexibility.
Yes.
We millennials live on flexibility, right?
Flexibility, adaptability, curiosity. I think those are all going to be super important skills for us to maintain.
Thank you, millennials, for bridging that gap. Guys, it's a pleasure to have you here. Like 100 years of experience, a big Microsoft flavor today. We've extended the talk for a little bit, but we were 4, and I am extremely thankful for you guys for having taken the time to come talk to the people that follow this podcast. Hey, stay tuned for more information on the book. It's all still very secretive, but it's going to be out there. I'm sure they're going to publish it through some friends I know called Multilingual. That's already. We don't have to hide a lot around that. But thank you so much. Any final words anyone wants to say, or any type of advice, or we just say bye?
No, thank you, Javi, for having us. I guess it's great. It's amazing. You bring a lot of energy to the industry, and we love that.
It's because if you don't come up to life with energy, you're bored. And it's like anyone can live as they want. It's allowed to live any way you want. But if you come up with energy, it makes a difference, man. So keep it up.
Thank you, Javi. Thanks for having us. It was a super interesting conversation.
Yes, my friends. Alfredo,
I have a
beautiful cat of yours.
Thank you so much, guys.
Until the next time, my friends. See you to another episode of Merging Minds. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.